What's up? I'm Kirk of Effectatron, and today we're going to talk with Elly Wade. This is from the Mind in Motion course. I got to do these exclusive podcast interviews with a lot of artists and incredible artists like Jake Bartlett, Justin Valkema, Jesse Kaizen, and this one is Elly Wade of Maxon, who was fantastic. And we just talk about things like imposter syndrome and AI and all these things and all these fears and doubts when everything that's kind of wrapped up and involved in being a 3D artist or an artist in general, and what it's like to, not feel like you're good enough. And like everybody goes through that. And we also talk about our stories and how to get where we are and all this stuff. And Elly's story is fantastic, and she's just got such a good vibe about her, and her training and everything is fantastic. You should definitely check it out on the Maxon training channel for sure. But just take a look. This is just a segment that's an hour long, but there's more and more podcasts available on Mind in Motion. And all these interviews I got to do with these people, I hope that what you hear from them kind of impacts you as much as it did me. It was almost as therapeutic for me to talk to these people and get motivated and hyped to do, just to kind of remember why I fell in love with 3D and why I do what I do. And so hopefully it can help you if you're in a rut or anything, or just put it on the background side monitor and listen to it if you want. But yeah, let's just dive in. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're good.
Do you listen to music with words while you work, or do you I can't listen to music with words while I work. I don't know why.
So it's like deep house. So it has the occasional song will have the occasional stuff, but it's not like someone singing consistently. Yeah. I like a little bit of then I get carried away. I'm just I do a lot of synth wave or EDM mixes, that kind of stuff. For sure. Yeah, I find EDM can be too intense. Am I at a rave, or am I trying to get some work done? I need something just mellow in the background.
Yeah, I'll do anything that's Blade Runner ambient sounds or stuff like that. I'm into that for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Man, I appreciate you hopping on and joining this. So
no worries. I appreciate you asking.
Hey, no problem. Yes, I've talked to 5, I think, artists already, and about these questions, and every single one of them has said the exact same thing. When it comes to the answers to these questions and stuff, it is crazy. And it's super validating the fact that it is such a huge impact on an artist and the work you do and stuff. And it is not talked about enough. It is such a big important thing. And I used to be really, really scared to put that kind of stuff, talk about being vulnerable and struggling with things in my YouTube content. And because that's not good YouTube content when you look at SEO keywords and stuff like that. And people want YouTube tutorials. They don't want a 5-minute rant in the beginning about me feeling like I suck. But then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And the feedback I get from that was I got more feedback on content like that than I did on any of my tutorials or stuff like that. There's always the occasional person that's skip to 8-minute mark to start the tutorial, a bunch of blah, blah, blah at the beginning.
But I think it's nice for everyone to know, the way that they're feeling is how pretty much 99% of everyone else is feeling, especially in our industry, where we're kind of crazy. Creative and putting things out there and being please don't hate it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you get there's just 3D is such a vast spectrum of skills that some things click with people and some things don't. Some people could model you the most intricate little thing, but have no idea how to light it, or have no idea how to put a material on it to make it look good, or be the best at making materials, but then not know how to light it to make that material look good. And it's just so many pieces of a puzzle that you think you have to have them all perfect to make the best puzzle. And it's just they don't fit together regardless. Just let it be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the more you learn, the less you realize that you actually know about the software.
Yes, that's what you're saying.
Not everyone is great at everything. We all have the things that we like that probably end up being the thing that we're best at because we like it.
Exactly. Yes. We were talking about that, verbatim. It's wild. Everybody's kind of said the same thing. And it's you don't even have to be good at everything. And basically You start off, and when you start off on your journey, like a lot of these people are that are taking this course right now, you're like so hyped that you're just doing 3D and you're learning it and you're investing in yourself that you think your work is amazing. And you're like, look what I made, look what I made, look what I made. And you have no fear. And then like 5 years later, you'll go back at that and be like, oh my God, how did I show that off? Like, but then what happens is you start to learn enough to get to the point where you know that there's so much more to learn that you don't feel like you know enough anymore. So you like cross this threshold from being like that beginner hype to just all of a sudden realizing, oh, wait, even though like, I think there's a TED talk about like 40% of people think they're in the top 5% of things. But the majority of people that are in the top 5% think they're in the bottom like 20%. Because like this kind of mental gap where you know enough that that's kind of like ignorance is bliss. Like if you don't know what you're missing, you think you've got it all. But once you learn enough, you realize there's so much more to learn, and it's daunting. But so that's kind of what these talks are hopefully, there for people to revisit or inspire them at this moment, wherever they are along their journey. Everybody hits those walls. Everybody has those hurdles. And so we've just kind of been talking about like what you do personally when you get to that, and whether, and talk about what that looks like for you and like how that makes you feel and all kinds of stuff. And it's been really cool to hear all people's different stories. Everybody has like different origins, but they all go through the same like channels. It's wild. It's really cool, like from all over the world. So
I think it's lovely. Like I'm excited to see like what you do with these and hear everyone else's and listen to their stories and
I appreciate
the similarities. And
I definitely want to hear more from you about like, we'll talk about it later, but just like the female perspective, because it's a very male dominant industry, especially in teaching and stuff too. Like you're one of the few that I could find that I like to know about, as like I interviewed you and I interviewed Evelyn Salazar. Do you know her?
I don't know.
She is on Skillshare exclusively, I think. And
okay.
She's from Peru and she teaches C4D, and like English is not her first language. And she may be one of the nicest, happiest people I've ever met in my life. Like the first thing we said when I met, I said, "How are you?" And she said, "I'm happy." And I was like, I don't think I've ever said that when somebody asked me that question. Yeah. So
that's cool. Like, maybe I'll connect with her and say that.
You should. I can send you her link because she's really cool. Her stuff is really neat too. I'm not sure she uses Redshift yet. She's just, I say yet because I think
maybe that could be my little in. I'm like, I hear you're not using Redshift.
Yeah. So it's been real cool. So we'll talk about that. But let's tell me a little bit, and then the people that are listening to this, obviously, Ellie, about just who you are and kind of how you got started on your 3D journey. Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So mine is not very traditional, I'd say. Maybe it's about 8 years ago, before I was even a Maxon, before I even knew anything about 3D or Cinema 4D, I was playing and coaching football, soccer for you Americans.
Me,
you guys. So was doing a lot of that, and I was going into schools, coaching different sports, but my main was football, and I was playing as well myself. Mm-hmm. But it was a lot of evenings, weekends, a lot of traveling around like the district.
Yeah.
And I was getting to a point, I was like, I probably need to find something that's a little bit more 9 to 5 so I can continue to maybe play and coach, but it isn't my whole life. It isn't my whole day to day when I'm sort of traveling around.
Of anything. I used to work in sports video and stuff and do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And like the pay also, if I can talk about that, is not the best when you're a coach. You're paid by the hour, and it's
especially not.
And schools don't have a lot of money.
It's a lot of emotional investment that goes along with that too. Like it's a lot.
Yeah. So I did the standard sort of early 20s thing. Mm-hmm. Opened up Google, job search, left the search bar blank. This is the truth. I left the search bar blank and did a 5-mile radius because I also had a dog at the time. Yeah. So I couldn't be off hours and hours of the day and be out for maybe 14 hours. I needed to make sure I was close enough to my little dog. Mm-hmm. And there was this sales job at Maxon, and I thought I also kind of tangent, I didn't study. I don't have a degree. I did A-levels, and we can talk about that later and what I studied. So I was like, I can do sales with no experience. Yeah, I did a retail job when I was a teenager, like everybody in the world has done for a couple of years. Like that's sales, right? Yep. So applied for it. Didn't even research the company, which now, by the way, anyone, if you get a job, research the company. Like it's just like standard what you do. Somehow got an interview, turned up to the old UK office, which used to be where I live. We don't have one now. And walked in, and it's this like really beautiful place. Looked like a house from the outside in the middle of the countryside of England. Just like deers around and things like that. And there was just movie posters everywhere. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like maybe they're just like, cool. I don't know. Like, and had a chat with the UK boss at the time, a guy called Liam Stacey. And he was like, do you know anything about Maxon? I was like, I'm going to be totally honest with you. No, I live down the road. And he showed me the show reel, which was just this incredible, like, as you know, the incredible like demo reels that they used to have at this time was only Cinema 4D. Right. And I was sort of like, what do you do here? Yeah. And he explained about Cinema 4D and about what the company did and talked about the training side of things, but obviously I'd be in the sales side. And I was like, I need this job. I remember sitting there thinking, I need to just absolutely own this interview now because I don't want to walk out of here without this job. Cool. And we talked, and because I'd studied certain creative things at A-levels, that put me in a good enough position to have been given the job, and basically was in sales selling the software whilst teaching myself, watching the likes of yourselves, Grayscale Gorilla, EJ.
I think everybody watched like Chris Schmidt's intro to C4D.
Pretty much, yeah. I used to do like all of those, like the most watched Cinema 4D YouTube videos. I'll be like, yeah, I've done that. And I did the original Cineversity rocket, which is now the fishbowl. Yes. I did the rocket. Right. Throwback. So that was kind of the accidental journey into Maxon and eventually becoming a trainer out of nowhere, like out of sheer coincidence, happening to live because I moved next to the UK office. I wasn't born there. Right. I don't live there now. It was just sheer coincidence and chance at the time that it all just fell into place, which is it's wild. And I hate telling that story, but I also love telling that story. Why? Because you're like, hang on a minute, you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, see, that's one. Okay, we'll talk about that because that's a lie. Like, you're definitely telling yourself that. No, that is absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, your stuff is amazing and awesome. Awesome. That is that's a really cool, like, coincidence story. And it's interesting that you feel like it takes away your validity as an artist or as a teacher just because you didn't pursue it. Like,
yeah,
you just feel like because you didn't know about it that you don't. I
just feel I am far less experienced with anything to do with this. All I know is what I've tried to teach myself, and of course all the amazing people around me who share their knowledge, and I ask the Maxon team like questions every single day. But really, I don't come from the industry. I haven't worked in a studio. I don't really know much about lighting apart from the kind of hacks that I know. I don't have a degree, and I don't think that matters. Right. Like, I don't think having a degree matters at all. But for me personally, I think, okay, well, there was nothing before sales at Maxon that was anything to do with anything apart from maybe the experience of coaching and teaching. That skill is transferable.
Right. I think like as an educator, like for me, like I didn't know that I had a passion for teaching until I really tried just putting out tutorials and making Skillshare and stuff a few years ago. Because like I knew I wanted to make cool visual effects. Like I always loved making videos and films and stuff, and I loved acting. And I thought that's where I was going to go in college. Young me was like doing short films and stuff, acting. And I realized, you know, I kind of like where I am in Kentucky in the United States, which if you don't know, it's not a very big film town or film state. So I was kind of like, I feel like there's a lot more jobs. I didn't want to move to LA. I didn't want to be that big city life, hustle and bustle, grind for that kind of thing. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I like being behind the camera just as much, if not more, than I like being in front of the camera. So there's a lot more jobs in that industry. So, I just got a job basically I went to the University of Kentucky, and I, majored in telecommunications, which is the closest thing to video that we had. Basically, there were 2 courses in my whole 4 years that had anything to do with video. The rest of it was like learning how to send data packets across telephone wires and crap like that I never need to know.
Didn't fancy it, no?
No, but what I did do is I lied on my application for a internship. And basically at the university, you had to be a junior or a senior to apply for an internship. So I was like, it's a big university. No one's going to double check this crap. So I was like, I'm just going to say that I'm qualified to do that. And it worked. And I got an internship early. And I worked at sports video. So I got to like film sports and edit and stuff. It was really cool because it was kind of like working for a client in a way, but they gave me a lot of creative freedom, which I liked. I like a lot of creative freedom, and I got to do a lot of cool, basically I worked there for 8 years. I finally got a full-time job there doing that, but like all through there, I was learning After Effects, and I was using high-speed motion cameras and doing all cool compositing and thinking I was making like epic videos that play on the jumbotrons for stuff. Like UK sports is a big deal there and everything. So it was cool to like have a full stadium, just like jumping up and down to your hype music, that you put together a video for. And it was really neat and fun. And I finally got a full-time job and I was doing it, but I met my wife there at the time. She was also doing video and stuff, and we started, dating or whatever. And she quit that and went and got a job at a production company as an editor. So she worked to a production company in town, which is one of the few ones they had in the state, honestly. And I was like, that's really cool. And so the pay I was getting at the university was really crappy. It's minimum wage kind of thing. And the hours were the same kind of thing. I was working Saturday, Friday nights, Saturdays all day during softball, like baseball. I had to do all 22 sports. So it was like Thursday, Friday night.
Wow.
It was
and that is, all the sports times. Like,
yes. So
the way it is.
Not my ideal scenario. Especially once we started like getting more serious in the relationship and like getting out of that phase into that phase of life where you start settling down a little bit. So I got a job at that production studio that she went with as well. And I got a job in the video production department where we used like Red Epic Dragons and all kinds of cool things to do national commercials and stuff like that in the studio. But in the downtime, like basically you'd have entire shoots. And again, production, same thing as sports though. Like it's long days, really weird hours, a lot of traveling. And that's just not me. I'm a homebody. Like I like being in my chair, in my home or on my couch. Like I'm good. But basically in those times in between those shoots and those big productions, most of the rest of the team was pretty content with just chilling and just like getting on the internet and looking up whatever and getting, and just taking inventory, stuff like that. But I was like, I can't sit here and do nothing. Like I want to keep learning. And the editors just happened to have a copy of C4D. Like a license to it, but none of them were using it. So I was like, hey, can I borrow this license and stuff?
I have to ask which version.
Oh,
I'm curious.
It was
what's the number?
16.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 16, I think. It's not 14. 16, I think. And then or maybe it's 15. It was a teen. And basically I started just learning that on the side, like in my downtime and stuff. And I had messed around with Blender. I think most people start with Blender. Obviously not you. You went straight to the big time. But yeah.
Straight in.
But Blender is like kind of neat, kind of fun, but it's like, I didn't know everything I was doing. And the content back then was a lot less than it is now and everything. Still, even with C4D, it was all CPU based and everything. And anyway, but while I was doing all of that, my boss saw some of the stuff I was making in my downtime. And I really liked it. Like 3D for me was everything I wanted out of video production and editing and stuff like that, because basically I really liked capturing things that looked really pretty and making them look good and telling a story with things. But I also liked like editing and putting things together to tell another piece of that story in that aspect. But I didn't like traveling, going places, having to do things for long hours, showing up on set 3 hours early to wait for somebody to show up to then shoot for 3 minutes and then go another hour. So 3D was like, hey, you can do all of that stuff from your desk and you can control every aspect. You don't have to worry about the weather. You don't have to worry about how much equipment you have to carry around. It's all just right here in this space. So I was like, this is like exactly what I want. This is what I want to do. And so eventually my boss saw the stuff I was making and he was like, that's really cool. I think we could use that. So we opened up a 3D department. This is kind of a weird flex, but that's kind of like what happens with my jobs. Like basically there wasn't a job for me at UK Sports Video, but they liked what I was doing so much that they made a position for me to go full time there.
That's incredible though.
And then I left that job in 9 weeks. And so I went to this production company, started the 3D office. They brought in a guy that he knew that used to do 3D like 6 years ago. So that would have been like, I don't know, in the 2000s, right? So an early adapter to 3D, kind of mainstream kind of a thing. So he brings in this guy to be my mentor, and super nice guy, but he hasn't done 3D in a long time, and he only knows 3ds Max. And my boss didn't understand that was different than C4D. He was like, all right, so go ahead and start making something. I'm like, I don't know how to make anything. This is a different software. I have to buy me some training. So I had to convince him to do that and give me some training. And the guy that I worked with was really nice, but he really had only ever made ArcViz stuff, which if you know anything about ArcViz stuff is really pretty and cool, but it's not really motion graphics and it's not motion design in any way. It's like literally as far opposite as you can go in 3D as possible from what I wanted to create. But I liked the challenge of learning a new software and stuff like that. So we learned Mental Ray, which was CPU based and, took 12 hours to render a frame and all of that stuff came along with that. But the workplace, while we were working at, even though everything on paper sounded great, like I was getting to do 3D 40 hours a week, everything was good. I was making stuff. I didn't have like a whole bunch of client work, so they let me just experiment and research and design. Everything sounds really perfect, except the workplace was like a really toxic environment, like to the point where my wife is an editor and we're in the same building, and we would leave at lunchtime and come home, and the only thing we could like stand to watch was Bob Ross, the painter, because we need positive vibes because we are so pissed off at everything right now. Like we could just vent forever. Like it was a really, really toxic work environment. And so she's overworked more than I am. Like I'm overworked without any like validation that my work is even like I was making stuff all the time for nothing. It would go nowhere. Nobody would see it. Half the stuff I was making was for like a welcome screen for potential clients. Like that was the kind of work that I was.
Yeah. So it sounds lovely that you have the flexibility to just create endlessly, but when there's
as long as it was branded with our company's stuff, like it had to be somehow pigeonholed into a thing.
Yeah.
It was all a mess. So my wife quits and she goes freelance on her own. She takes the School of Motion design course. She's like an amazing After Effects motion graphics artist now. Like she doesn't even really do editing that much anymore. She just does that, and she's gone freelance in that. And I'm like, this is amazing. You're doing it. And now I am at this job that I hate without my wife here to even commiserate with. So now I hate this job even more. And like after 8 hours of working in 3D, I still wanted to learn Cinema 4D because I knew that that's what I wanted. I just had this feeling that I could tell that I want to learn that, not 3ds Max. And so like I would try to power through and learn stuff at home, but it just made 3D it wasn't fulfilling anymore because it was so draining at work that when I came home, I didn't want to keep doing it. But I knew I wanted to be a 3D artist. Like this was like this is what I want to do. I saw the movie Inside Out and I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like this is amazing. Great movie. But basically,
it is a great movie.
It is so good. It is so good. So deep. But I started looking for jobs and I was looking at jobs all over the place. And I found this job in South Carolina which was pretty 10-hour drive or something, but away from where we were now. But my wife was freelance now, and we didn't have kids or anything yet, so it's possible we could move. And so like maybe this is work. So I found this job, and I applied, and this guy flew my wife and I down there, put us up in this really nice hotel for 2 days. I go there, it's this like old textile mill factory that's been refurbished. It's like this huge building with like big high ceilings, old brick, wooden floors, a really cool vibe. He's like, we're moving up to the corner studio soon. Everybody's using Cinema 4D. It would be a position right underneath the boss where I was managing student workers. So I'd be able to teach and do things at Cinema 4D. And I was talking to this guy, and he was doing stuff for clients like Home Depot and Delta faucets and all these big things. Like anything you see like online of like products was mostly their renders and all this stuff. And it was really cool. And I spent like 10 hours a day like doing these like test interviews with them. And we flew back that night after the second day. And like my wife's like, I'm like, this is great. Like, and it was going to be twice as much money as I was making before. So
okay.
It was like doubling money, checking off all the boxes.
I was going to say, yeah, all the right things.
Yes. And so we fly back that night. We're exhausted because we've been traveling for 2 days, and I've been like in interview mode for 20 hours.
Yeah.
And we go to our little like small group, which have like a church group kind of thing where we gather and we just kind of talk and hang out. And we're just, nothing really happens that dramatically. We go through the group, everything's fine. We say a prayer and we leave. Like we just kind of pray. We just kind of pray about it, like help me make a decision kind of a thing. I'm like, okay, like no, there's no like lightning bolt, like anything like that. But I walk out of the house, and I'm walking out of the house, and I'm going to the car, and I look at my wife and I say, honey, I'm not taking that job. And she gets like mad because she's like already made the mental switch, like looking up houses in Greensboro and all this stuff. And like, she's like, yeah, we're doing this. I'm hyping myself up. We're going to do it. And I'm like, I'm not going to take it. I don't think I'm supposed to take this job, even though I checked off everything on my list.
What was making you, was it just like a feeling?
It was just
thinking,
a good kind of feeling.
Even though everything sounds perfect.
The thing was, I was
a certain way.
Yeah, so I was exhausted, right? Like dead. And when I told my wife that I wasn't taking that job, I just like really felt this just like peace about everything. And I was like, I had
That's
energy.
How you know.
I felt great. And I was like, I don't question this at all. Like, I think I'm not supposed to take that job. And it was just, I couldn't really explain why or anything, but it just felt right.
But that release feeling is so important. Like, when you've made that decision,
yes, because
it's like a weight off. Yeah. And I think, I feel that is the decision maker sometimes, isn't it? That feeling.
Yeah. And it's like, what we talked about was kind of like priorities. And one thing I really struggled with a lot, and I still do, is wanting my identity to be Kirk, the 3D artist. Like, that's what I want my value to be. I want people to see my 3D work, and that assigns, like, that's what they associate with me and my value and who I am. But I'm like, that is kind of backwards. That shouldn't be my top priority. I should like be a good husband first, or a good like father eventually. Like now, and like those, and like I should care about just being like happy. Like people should see me and think I'm nice. Like that should be a priority over like my work. Like I was just shoving work way up high and like making that such an important thing in who I was and stuff, that it was kind of skewing my decision making and what I wanted to do. And so like I had this amazing piece about it, and it was great. And then the next day I had to go back to my job and then realize I was stuck now at my job still that I hate, without my wife here and without any other jobs. So eventually what happens is one of my friends from that group is like, hey, have you prayed about like just what job you're supposed to look for? Because I've been just praying for jobs and stuff like that, which is, normal. And I was like, no, I guess I haven't done that. So I do that, and not kidding, the next day I get a job offer pops up on my phone, like things I've been searching. And my wife's pissed because she's been looking for jobs for me for like 2 hours a day. Like she is determined to get me out of this place. and I take 5 minutes and look at something and find something that she's never found. And it's a job as a video editor at Asbury Seminary, which is basically a Bible college, like a Bible university. And I was like, that's a little on the nose for the answer for a prayer, but okay. But I apply for the interview, and it's super nice, and I get the job, and I'm a one-man band. I have my own studio. And I'm like, because what had happened was I've only been looking for 3D jobs. And so I was thinking that I had to do 3D if I wanted to be a 3D artist, and I needed to do that. But what I found out is that sometimes a job can be a job and your passion can be a passion, even though especially American culture, if you want to be successful, you need to find what you're passionate about and then make a bunch of money at it. And that's how you define success. So if you have a hobby, if you're not making a bunch of money doing it, you're not successful. And that's kind of how I was living. And that's not a healthy way to go about doing things. So I got to quit my job. I got to go there. It was a 45-minute drive, which is like the furthest I've ever had to drive in my life. I come from a small town where everything was 5 minutes away. So I didn't enjoy that commute, but super happy group of people to work with. Everybody was super nice. It was a great work environment. I was doing video, which I knew how to do, and I was learning stuff like that. But what it allowed me to do was to keep learning Cinema 4D and afford Cinema 4D. There's also a pay cut to go to that job too. So it's like everything the opposite of what the other job was, which is checking off all the boxes, double money, to not checking any of the boxes and taking a pay cut. But that's the job that made me happy, because that job, when I left that job, I was happy. I wasn't stressed. I didn't need to vent for an hour. I got to come home. I had energy to do C4D training and stuff like that. So when I did that, that's when I started Effectatron. Is when I was working as a videographer, not even a 3D artist. And I got to learn Redshift and stuff. And honestly, so basically what happened before that was when I was still back at the production company, I was looking up things like render engines and stuff like that, because 3ds Max adapted Arnold. So I started learning Arnold after I'd learned Mental Ray and iRay and V-Ray and now Arnold. Basically, I was like, there's got to be something better out there. And that's where I found Octane and Redshift. And the only reason I picked Redshift over Octane was, one, I thought their renders looked more realistic than Octane. I feel like I can look at a picture and know it's Octane. I don't know, I might be fooling myself. But the other reason was because if you bought Redshift, it worked across all platforms. Like, it works across 3ds Max, Cinema 4D. But if you bought Octane, you had to buy a license for a license for Octane for 3ds Max and a license for Octane for Cinema 4D. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to do that, because work's not going to pay for me to have a license for C4D at home, because they're not using it at work. So I was like, let's just do Redshift. Everybody, let's just do Redshift. So I got them to get Redshift, and then I got them to invest in 2 3080 GPUs for both computers. So we finally got Redshift, and then we got 3080s. And then a week later, I quit that job. So that's when I left. So I updated it. I got to create a new position, a new industry department in this production house. And then I left because it was terrible. But that's what it went. So then I went and worked at this video production, where I started Effectatron. And then that's when COVID hit, was while I was here, which if you were lucky enough to avoid video production during COVID, what happens is every department thinks they need a video for everything, because no one can meet up. So everybody needs a video because no one can read. And everybody needs a video explaining to them very simple things. It could be an email. So I tallied it up. I did over 400 videos in a year for this college, which is a lot. Yeah. So it's a one-man team doing it all, filming and editing and all that stuff. Some of it's short form content, so it's not that big, but a lot of it was like big anyway. So I really got burnt out. They burnt me out on it, to the point where I was like, look, we gotta like have somebody to help me. So finally they discussed hiring a new part-time worker, because basically when I came in, I replaced 2 part-time people and became 1 full-time person. And then, but right before, basically I put in my 2 weeks notice, they agreed that they were hiring somebody to help me out. So, so it started a new department and created a new job once again, and I left. So I'm just trying to build things.
I'm sensing a pattern.
Yeah. So, but I'm trying to create a living by teaching. But yeah, that is a long-winded version of my story of how I got into 3D. Was just a whole bunch of weird chance and then making decisions that seem 100%.
I think it's a really beautiful story.
It's crazy.
Especially with like the praying side of things and how that came about.
You talk about just the fact that yours was kind of chance that you had this feeling that you're like, I have to nail this interview. That's it. That's like, sometimes it just happens and you just feel, it just feels right. And that's not any less valid or impressive or anything than just being like, when you're 10 years old, knowing that when you grow up, you want to be a 3D artist and you've been researching it and you went to school for it and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. Like when you find your passion, whenever you find it on your journey, that's all.
And you say about being like burnt out or the fact that your job doesn't need to be your passion.
Yeah.
I found that. So I love football and coaching, but when it became my job as well as my hobby, I no longer had the same love for it when I was then going and doing it in my own time.
Yes.
And I have a feeling, like, I don't know, this is all just like ifs and maybes, but if I knew about this kind of industry or job or 3D in general, at the point of studying for a degree, 3 or 4 years in, I mean, knowing me, maybe even a year in, of someone telling me how to do it, I was like, this isn't really for me.
Right.
Because it just accidentally came about. And I was like, I kind of enjoy this. Yeah. And no one's told me to do this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's like the same for me.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Like 6 years ago, you tell me in 6 years, you're going to have a YouTube channel where you make content teaching people how to do a very niche program with a very niche render engine. And that's what you're going to do. I'd be like, no, I'm going to make gaming videos and I'm just going to make goofy content and have fun playing games all day. That's what I'm going to do with my life. But like, so I went down that same route trying to make like Twitch and gaming, which is a huge passion of mine, trying to make money on that. And it just added stress into the one thing that was like a really big stress reliever for me. So like I had to nix that. I was like, I can't, these things don't mix. I can't do this. It's not for me. So it's the same kind of thing in all different aspects. It's wild. It's really weird how that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as well, when I think back when I was at school, when I was studying and had a love for things like art, photography, music technology.
When you had a love for things.
No, as in like when I was like studying those things and I enjoyed doing like I sport, photography, art and music tech. But I don't know whether this is just the UK culture or maybe because I've grown up with parents who were in education and were teachers. They didn't seem like a viable career path. At no point did I think, I basically chose them because I enjoyed doing those things.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what academic subjects that I really wanted to spend another 2 hours doing. I didn't really enjoy school. Like I enjoyed having fun, but I wasn't like a real like, hey, I absolutely love sitting here in maths and English.
Yeah.
But so I picked those subjects, but no part of me was like, hey, this can then become a successful career. I was never going to become, or in my head at that time, I was never going to become a professional footballer. That wasn't a thing like it is now for females. Right. I wasn't going to become the most successful DJ if I studied music tech. And then as a photographer, all of those things to me just didn't seem like you're going to make loads of money to live your life as you should. So they were just hobbies and passions.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the job and the work and what you're going to do when you grow up. It's completely different. I was thinking I'll just do something so I can do those things at the same time.
Right.
Pretty much like you said with starting the YouTube channel whilst doing the video editing that isn't taking all of your creativity or all of your energy, so you can save that for the things that you love to do.
Yeah. And like, yes. And for me, when I try And for other people that are wanting to get into this, like they may not want to be educators and stuff, but it's really difficult to balance that passion for making 3D stuff and teaching. Because what I find myself doing is I really, really struggle with just making something. Like I have to intentionally tell myself I am making this without the intent of teaching anything about it. Like I'm going to make this for me and I'm going to have fun making it, and I'm not going to worry about replicating it ever again and being able to teach someone how to do it. And so I try, and I think I only did it for like 1 or 2 weeks. Like I want to do it like every Friday afternoon. I'm like creative time, boom, like lock it in. I'm not doing anything for work. But what happens is I start playing around, and then I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do a little I'll just do a little tutorial on this. That won't be too bad. And then I just like stacks up this list of things to do, and it doesn't fill up my tank anymore. And I end up draining myself and feeling like I'm working all the time without actually coming up with anything, because when I set out to do it, I wasn't trying to work. I was trying to relax, and then I made that relaxing work. And it's just all a big mental mix up of not understanding the direction and the why of what you're doing, kind of a thing, which is a big part of being a creative and a teacher and stuff. But yeah, so talking about like that and stuff, and just like learning, I guess, basically as an instructor, it's one thing, but as someone like that creates in a field of 3D and stuff, are basically the software is pretty much limitless. Like the stuff that you can do, it's not like, learning certain tools like plumbing. Like there's only so many pipes and things. And obviously there's a lot more to it than most, but you probably doesn't have the same kind of range that 3D software has when it comes to skills to learn. So how do you deal with the fact that you maybe don't feel like you will have learned enough?
I think, that's a great question, because I do feel like that. And I think, or I hope that I'm not the only person that thinks like that. Yeah. And I think a part of it is it's the pace in which the industry changes and moves. Yeah. There is just so many new things or new ways to do things that it can become overwhelming. Yeah. And I always feel like I'm playing catch up.
Yes.
Really. The way that I maybe deal with it is maybe I still class myself as being at the start of my journey, and so that helps me. Whether that is a lie I tell myself, I don't think it is, because I've only really been a trainer for 3 years, and so that helps me to sometimes, when I get carried away with new things and all of the people I admire, yourselves and the team and all the people that I've watched on YouTube and all the tutorials, you will always have more experience and knowledge than me, because every time I learn something, or every time a year goes by for everybody else of learning something. And I think I just told myself to expect that's the way it is. And that's all there is to it, really.
I know exactly the feeling you're talking about. Like pretty much anytime you watch a video or anything, or you learn something new, like while you're learning that something new, you know that somebody else is learning something else, right? Like that's kind of what you tell yourself. Like you're always one step behind everybody else. And you said that you think everybody else has more experience and stuff than you. I don't think that's true. I think everybody else has different experience and different skills and stuff and knowledge than you do. But it's not so much more. Yeah. And I think just kind of, and I do the exact same thing. And I'm when I'm talking to all these people, I'm talking as much to myself as I am with anything else. I'm doing a lot of like self-realization kind of things. Like just making that switch from talking about it in a negative way that makes it seem like you're lacking or you have less or something you're not as good, to making it just so that you're different or it's just not the same, just really that simple of a shift can just help your mental state with how you are and what you're doing in your job, like a lot. Like it has a lot of power in not talking down to yourself.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm also very content knowing that I'm never going to know everything, because no one's ever going to know everything about anything.
I am now, but when I was starting out, man, I was not. Like, I needed to know how to do all the lighting from scratch. I needed to know how to create every material from scratch. I needed to know what every node did. I needed to know how to model anything with every tool. I needed to know what all the modifiers did, like everything. I needed to do it all. I'm not going to buy models. I'm not going to buy materials. I'm not going to ever use anything that anyone else provides. I'm going to do everything from scratch. And that's how I started. And I thought, when I looked at other people like Grayscale Gorilla and stuff like that, and even CJ Shortcuts, who I've worked with before, like any class you saw where they like, it still bugs me when they have like models that they show that is not included in the class. That eats me. That's why in my course, everything is available.
The thumbnail that isn't the thing that you make.
Right. Yeah. Or
like,
that,
don't
like,
suck me in with a thumbnail.
And it's like, so don't do that. So, but like, even when I was learning and stuff from other people, anytime anyone else just like, well, I got this model from this, or I grab this material from this, and it was like behind a paywall, I turned off the tutorial. Like, that doesn't help me. I'm not going to do that, because to me, that's beneath me to use tools that are available to me. I'm going to do it all myself. And that is an exhausting way to approach 3D.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, all of those kind of, I don't know, emotions, struggles that we all go through based on our learning or what we like to do or the way that we feel about this makes us who we are and is what pushes us. Yeah. So you saying I had to know everything, well, at the start of your journey and then now you will know all of those things because you are on your own back about it. Whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, it makes you who you are. And me being content by not knowing X, Y, and Z, it gives me peace to talk about it.
Yeah, the big thing is like your perspective about how you go about doing it. Like early, like now, I know I'm not going to learn everything, and I still want to learn how to do everything, but I know that I can take that step by step at a time, and I can just learn, and that's the part that I've actually enjoyed, like that, just learning the new thing. Whereas a few years ago, it was more like, I'm not going to be happy until I know X number of things. Like the process of learning those things was tedious and work. And once I got those done, then I knew, then I would be happy. Once I cross this threshold, I will be happy. And that threshold just keeps moving, and that goal just keeps shifting and shifting. And if that's
always chasing,
if the destination is where you get your, like, and I've talked about this with all the other artists, like they've all mentioned it. Like if your destination of what you want is where you get your validation for your work, you're never going to be happy or satisfied with your work. Like it has to be the process. It has to be the journey. It's really cliche. I've said it every time, but it is the journey, not the destination. Because if you're like, I was talking to Lucas Thorup about, he's about like not knowing enough. And he's like, if you know everything about Cinema 4D, you need to do something else for your life, because there's no way.
Yeah. Where do you go? Where do you go from there?
He's like, cause you're done. Like do something else. Like you can't live a life just like, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. So it's, it really is just a big part of it is understanding your why, like what is driving you to learn 3D, and where are you getting your validation and your satisfaction from? Like what's filling up your tank as you learn? Because if it's, once I know how to do this, or once I think I'm as good as this person, or once I think I'm as good as this, that's when I'll be happy. That's when I'll feel like I'm a good artist. That's when I'll be good enough. You're never going to get there. Like you never will. And it's not a healthy way to look at it. Like you have to be, like you said, content with where you are and happy with the fact that there is more to learn, and you can get better. Like that's good. If you peak, you're kind of done. Like it's just downhill from there. Like there's
let that feeling drive you.
Yes.
Instead of holding you back.
Because it's very easy to let it hold you back, but really
I think there is a fine line between those two things. And the thing is, I don't think there is, like, sometimes I mean, I'm sort of like preaching this, I'm saying this. Sometimes if I'm having like a bad week or a bad day, or I'm not creating something, I will let it overwhelm me. I will let it bother me. And I think, why am I doing this? Or I shouldn't be in this position, with like the expectations that come with being an instructor or a trainer, especially at Maxon as well, or having years of experience. And whereas sometimes I'll be like, yeah, cool. I'm happy with this. I'm content. It's just like riding a wave, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not like a shortcoming to feel that way. Like, I think, and we talked about Inside Out earlier, but like Inside Out is just a great representation of what depression is. And that's something that I really struggled with just a few years ago, a lot, and still some now, but it's a lot better now. But a lot of people just think it means you're sad. Right. But it's not that. It's like, how in Inside Out, they have like all those factories that like make up your core identity. It's just like, and like silliness and goofiness, all of those start shutting down. And that's exactly what depression is. It's not like you just like get to the point where you don't want to feel sad anymore. So you suppress that. But when you suppress the sad, you also suppress the happy. Like you can't have one without the other. So everything just kind of becomes numb, and you're not sad. You're just kind of existing. And I did that for a long time. Right after I quit my job and was doing 3D, I started Effectatron. There was a honeymoon period where everything was going great, and I like partnered with CG Shortcuts, and then that kind of turned out to not really be exactly what I thought it was going to be. So yeah, that was a whole nother thing. But basically, basically the one reason I was like felt comfortable quitting my job was, that I was going to be split CG Shortcuts with Dave 50/50. And that is not at all what it was going to be. And there's a lot of communication issues and all this stuff. And so like all this high just went down. And while we're doing this, COVID's happening. My wife was pregnant and had a baby. So now we're both working from home. She and we have a toddler who won't sleep. While I made the Ultimate Redshift Masterclass, I was probably averaging 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, maybe, and just like trying to power through this course and do everything, and all while not really knowing that I was depressed. Basically, there were times when my daughter was like, we were playing with my daughter downstairs because we didn't have like a nanny or anything, like, so we basically alternate days. So I was only working like 2 days a week, and the other 3 days I was just taking care of my daughter, kind of a thing. And it just kind of became obvious. My wife kind of told me, she's like, you're not your best you right now. Like, I see a difference. Yeah. And my Roomba is talking to me. Basically, I would be with my daughter playing and stuff, but I didn't find, what is Roomba saying? Sorry. Anyway, I would be with her and I wasn't enjoying being with them or with myself or working. I always felt like I needed to be working more. It's all I could talk about. Anytime we had a walk, we went on a walk, anything, I was consumed.
Was that after your wife spoke to you, or did you feel like that? But I find like sometimes when you've got so much going on, you don't even have time to think about that until someone says you need to have a little look.
Basically, I didn't ever, and there's been a lot, like, so I started therapy was like a big part of it. And there's been a lot of unpacking and stuff from that. And a lot of it comes from like growing up in kind of a parenting kind of style that's like, walk it off, like power through your emotions, just get it done. Don't let your emotions, stop.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like emotion suppressing from a lot of stuff and a lot of different factors. And that kind of led to the fact that, again, I was looking for happiness and fulfillment and value in the wrong places. I had kind of gone through this huge journey where like figuring out my identity doesn't need to be a 3D artist, and I can be happy just doing a job, and all this great signs and these like, obvious things that are just like, you're doing the right thing. And I just kind of switched back to ignoring as if any of those things had ever happened. And I was, again, wrapped up in I need to make money doing 3D. I need to prove to myself and my family that I can teach and I can do this and I can make money and I can make a course that people will learn. And it just consumed me to the point where I wasn't happy about anything, and all my priorities were wrong, and I wasn't enjoying life at all. And after she told me that, I started therapy and stuff and started thinking about it and talking about it and really just like spending time self-reflecting. Because earlier, I didn't, I've always been one of those people that I don't like to feel emotions. Anytime my wife is like upset or sad, my gut reaction is fix it. Problem shoot, fix it. And she's like, I don't want you, I don't know how many times we've had this conversation. She's like, I don't want you to fix my feelings. I want you to just commiserate with me and just be with me through the feeling.
Yeah.
And like, it's not only until you really start having to deal with that as a dad with your toddler and stuff too, that you really see it, that I'm basically really toxic to myself a lot. And like when I'll be like, do you want this milk cup? And she'll say no or something. I'll be like, well, it's the only cup we have. She's 2.5, and I'll give her a milk cup and it's not the one she wants. And she will just like say, no, and just throw a fit. And I'm just like, and I'm sitting there looking at her and like her feelings are so real. Like she is legitimately that upset that I've given her the wrong cup. And the fact that I try to put a cap on that and say that feeling isn't valid. Who am I to tell my daughter that her feelings are not valid? Like that is such a bad thing to do. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to let her feel, and I'm going to say, we really try hard to say, I know you're mad, and that's okay. Like it's okay to be mad, and we really do that. And when you start doing that, you realize I look at myself and I'm like, I don't treat myself like that. If I feel something that I think is bad, I just like, I'm like, nope. I don't want to feel that sadness. I don't want to feel that at all. And I will stifle it. And I'm saying that's not valid and all this stuff. And it pours out into everything you do. Your emotions are not like something that's like a side channel of your life. They affect everything that you do. Yeah. And it's just really weird to finally, how old am I? 34. And just now really understanding, like working on handling my emotions. Like, why is that a thing that I have
and allowing yourself to feel that way? I envy people. I envy people like your wife who embrace the fact that when I'm sad, I'm going to be sad and I want to be. And it's so important to let that out and feel that way instead of like, I'm very similar. I like to kind of suppress anything other than super enthusiasm.
Inside Out again now. Yeah. It's like the scene in Inside Out where Stannis is sitting on the tree with Miley, right? And she's crying and Joy is watching this happen and she just cries and Stannis just sits with her and cries with her.
Yeah.
And then she feels better. And she has like the happiest core memory she has after that. And Joy's just like cannot comprehend how just being sad was okay. Like you need to be happy all the time. And I'm like, that's me. I'm trying to be Joy where I need to be all
cover it up with the happiness.
With the happy memories. Yeah. And it's like there is so much power in just like and freedom and feeling your emotions. And it's
embracing it. Yeah.
It's just, and to me, like I'm saying all this stuff now and I'm like, this doesn't belong in a Cinema 4D and Redshift course. Where are we talking about emotions and things? And I just have these doubts right now while we're talking about it, even though I know at the core.
But it's so validating because everyone feels different things at different times. There will be some people who embrace their emotions, some people that suppress them, some people think I shouldn't be feeling this way. And however you deal with them, as long as you deal with them, that's the important thing. And understanding that an emotion or a feeling is just for a period of time.
Yeah.
Like even though you saying about the destination is where the happiness is, there will be happiness and sadness, there will be anger, all of that through the whole journey, whether or not you get to a destination, all of those things, you will not be happy all the time. You will not love everything you do all of the time. Yeah. And understanding that and coming to terms with that is what makes that okay.
Preach. Yeah.
Quote it, send it.
Yeah, that's, yes. So, yeah. So on that note, kind of talking about our struggles and stuff and the flow of everything and allowing yourself to feel anything and everything, not just what you like to feel. I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. But so let's talk about, kind of loop us back to my questions a little bit here. What lies do you tell yourself about your own work?
Sure. Probably that I'm like good enough to be in the position that I'm sat in. And I know you will come back with something and accepting where I am, etc. But I think if I
you're right.
If I truly think about that's what I need. That's what I need to hear. Then it's only ever up.
Good kid.
If I think about like where I am in like the position, like especially for Maxon, I think that comes.
There's definitely a level of added
level of expectation. And if I really think about that, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I wouldn't be able to post or live stream or feel like I could share this knowledge or this information. So that absolutely is the biggest lie I tell myself, that is I'm good enough to be sat here. And
I think a lot of educators, I think, feel that way too. And one thing I've talked about with some other people, and one thing that kind of comes back to me that was really stuck out to me was, it was a webinar I watched of the guy that invented Sam's Cart, like some online purchasing software, basically. He said, he's talking to a guy that was like a millionaire or whatever, and he was just talking to him. He's like, you know what? When you would, if you really wanted to learn business to make a bunch of money, you would probably, invest in something like business school or something like that, right? So it's like, when you were in business school, was your professor a multimillionaire? Right. And it's like, no. He's like, but you thought he knew it, but you knew he knew what he was talking about, and it was worth your huge investment to learn from them, even though they're not a millionaire and stuff. So like, all you're doing is, he's like, basically all you need to do is be good enough to teach where you're at, because there's always somebody that's just starting. So you're always at a level that's above just starting because you know something. And as long as you know enough to start, you can always teach. And you can always have enough experience and knowledge to help somebody, because there's always people starting off. And so you don't have to, be super successful and have a huge demo reel of like Apple, Google, iPhone, like all these crazy things in order to know what you're talking about, for one, and to teach somebody and help somebody on their journey. And I think that's like, I was like, dang, that's true.